Hi everyone. So, welcome back to our YouTube channel where we talk about something in the legal sector or something you should probably know within the legal sector. My name is Yolanda Mnyengeza and I'm the founder and the director of Mnyengeza Attorneys, which is a law firm currently based in Johannesburg. So, what are we talking about today? Today we're going to answer 5 questions that I often get from my clients and other people regarding estates and succession, etc. So I think these questions are quite important, hence I'm going to answer all 5 questions in this particular video. The first question is, can I dictate how the proceeds of a policy must be bequeathed in a will? For instance, can I dictate how a policy should be paid out in my will? So first things first, in order for you to be able to direct as to how a policy needs to be paid out in your specific will, that policy has to be paid into your estate, which means that that particular policy must not have a specific beneficiary, or the beneficiary of that particular policy must be your estate. If it's your estate, or if the policy is going to fall within your estate, then in that particular instance, you can actually direct in your will how the proceeds must be paid out. However, if you do not, and the policy itself has someone that's specifically nominated as a beneficiary, unfortunately, in that particular instance, you cannot dictate in your will how the money should be paid out because it's going to go directly to the beneficiary. And you cannot make this change, for instance, of a beneficiary in your will to say, I would like to change the beneficiary of my life insurance or an insurance that I have. No. In order for you to do that, you'd have to approach the specific company which you've taken out the insurance policy from. So the second question that I often get is, how can I make sure, or can I ensure that my family is secure when I pass away? I think first things first, have a will drafted. That's going to be the first thing that's going to save you and to ensure that your family is protected. But more so, also have liquidity in your estate. What do I mean by liquidity? Have some money. Because as soon as you pass away, if you've only got assets and there's no money, that's going to be a problem. Because remember, when you pass away, there's certain debts that need to be paid, or there's certain things that accumulate that need to be paid for. And so if you do not have liquidity, it will mean that we're going to have to sell an asset that you thought you were leaving behind. But in actual fact, because now there's no liquidity, we might have to sell it. So think about liquidity. Majority of people, for instance, who have houses under mortgages, what they would normally do, they take out insurance policies. That's quite helpful because whatever is left over, then you can be able to settle certain debts. So make sure you draft a will, have some liquidity, and in order for you to actually get a bigger picture about how to do this, it's always good to actually find someone who's got the knowledge and understanding and have someone plan your estate with you. That is going to be helpful. The third question that I often get is, can I draft my own will without any professional assistance? The short answer is yes. In terms of the law, you can. But is it advisable? Definitely not. Remember, a will is not just any document. This is an instruction of someone who has passed on. So it has to meet certain standards. It has to meet certain formalities in terms of the law. And so if you are not exposed to those legal formalities, you might actually make a mistake, and that will could end up not meeting the standards. And what could actually happen is that once you pass away, that will can be deemed invalid, which is why I say it is not advisable to just draft a will by anybody. Rather go to someone who's got the legal expertise and understands the legal formalities, because in that way, then you ensure that everything goes smoothly when you pass away. Because there is nothing as frustrating as people having to fight over the validity of a will, because this is quite costly and it often delays the whole administration process. So rather, in my opinion, go to someone who's got the legal expertise to draft the will so that it meets the actual criteria and the standards. Fourth question that I often get is, what deductions are going to be made when I pass away in my estate? I mean, what will need to be paid for? Number one, all of your debts. If you've got debts currently, that debt is going to be there when you pass away, and it's going to have to be settled by your estate. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the administration fees, because administering an estate has to be done so by a professional or someone who's got the expertise, and that person has to be paid. There's master's fees as well. There's things like income tax and different taxes that are applicable when you pass away. So there's a lot that needs to be paid for when you pass away, which is why I always say or advise that you should have some money that is available to ensure that these debts are paid for. And number two, where possible, if you've noted previously, I said have certain insurances that can cover certain debts so that there's not a lot of debts that need to be paid by the actual estate itself, especially if you don't have a lot of liquidity in the estate, because then that could cause a problem. And like I said, we'd have to sell something. So there's quite a few debts that need to be paid out when a person passes away, which is why I always say and advise that seek professional advice before planning your estate, before writing down a will. Sit down with someone so that they take you through what you have and properly plan your estate based on the values that you've got. Let's answer the fifth question, which is the last one, and that is, if I pass away without drafting a will, who's going to inherit? Or if someone passes away without drafting a will, who's entitled to inherit? Now, first things first, when you pass away and you don't draft the will, you are regarded as someone who passed away intestate, and therefore the Intestate Succession Act comes into play. So in terms of the Intestate Succession Act, if you had a spouse and you did not have children, what you have will go to your spouse, okay? But if you had children and you had a spouse, then what's going to happen is that the spouse is entitled to 250,000 Rand, or what we call a child's share, whichever is the greatest of the two. That is what the spouse is going to inherit, and then the children are going to inherit whatever is left, okay? So that's how it goes. So in the case where you don't have a spouse, you just have children, what's going to happen, all that you have is going to go to your children. They're going to share it accordingly. Doesn't matter whether they were born in a marriage or out of a marriage, all children born of you are going to inherit. Let's say you don't have a spouse, you don't have children. Who's your estate going to be shared to or given to, or who's going to be the beneficiary of your estate? In that particular instance, we're going to look at your parents, and then your parents are going to have to inherit what you've left behind. If you do not have parents, then in that particular instance, we're going to look at your siblings, which means we're going to look at your mother's children, we're going to look at your father's children. All of them are going to have to get from your estate. And then if you don't have any siblings, we're going to look at the closest relatives. But that's how it goes. So those are the 5 questions that I said I would answer pertaining to succession, estate planning, etc. So one more advice that I have for you: if you're planning your estate, make sure meet someone professional. Don't just draft a will on your own. Get someone professional to assist you. In that way, you can ensure that all that you've planned for and all that you had in mind does not go in vain, and it ensures that if you pass away, whoever it is that you want to benefit is going to be protected. I hope this information was helpful, and I'll see you next time when we talk about something that's interesting in the legal sector. My name is Yolanda Mnyengeza. I'll catch you on the flip side.